said he'd cover it during the presentation. Well, I do have a history, so I will tell you.
By the way, your intro sucks so far.
Yeah.
Well,
the intro is awful.
Okay, I'll try again. Steve is he's actually my former boss. He actually taught me how to dress, and that white suit.
And I still can't get him out of Brooks Brothers.
No, you cannot. This is Brooks Brothers today. But Steve has been a leader in diversity and inclusion in our industry, and you'll learn a lot today. And he's got a real authenticity about him, and I'm excited about what you're going to hear. So, Andy, take it away.
Thank you, Norm. As a matter of fact, the reason why Norm is so successful is because he used to work for Steve Joyce. And Steve Joyce taught him everything that Norm knows, but not everything that Steve knows. But it's interesting. This industry is so incredible that when I was doing research for this panel, I met Steve 25 years ago in 2000 when we pitched this idea, and I reminded him, put that on, can I ask you to put that image on stage? Don't put it on stage. I wanted to remind people that when we talk about being genuine, we pitched the idea about how can we have more African Americans, people of color, get into the business. Steve didn't care. Steve just wanted more business, but he was the first guy to say at Marriott, I want to support NABHOOD. Steve, you had a distinguished career. I was telling Norm that I want to be like you when I grow up.
Careful what you ask for.
Yeah, you started at Marriott, you became the president of Choice, you went to Dine Brands, IHOP, Chili's, and something like that. Then you went to Remax, and now you're the executive chairman of the largest management company, hotel management company in the world, Aimbridge. How'd you get this idea to go into the hospitality industry?
Well, it's easy, because I started working in the restaurant business when I was 12, washing dishes, and then I was a cook, then I waited on tables, then I tended bar. But then when I went to school, my dad was a very supportive guy who said, you can go to any school you want, anybody's going to let you in, we're fully supportive. Good luck paying for it. So, long story short, I went to school, got a job running restaurants, but my claim to fame in the restaurant business, which I got out of quickly because I realized how dangerous it was I managed the largest disco in Charlottesville, Virginia in 1979.
Disco?
Disco. With,
wow.
With the ball and the 2 balls, 3 bars, the rope where you'd go and out and you'd go, okay, you can come in, you can come in, the rest of you guys can wait. And you go in, and I learned a lot in that job because it was my first real managerial job. And there were beautiful cocktail waitresses, and there were a lot of security issues, and there were at that point, a lot of drugs and everything else, and I learned very quickly what not to do. And I won't tell any of the stories because none of them are fit for public consumption.
Statute of limitations is not expired either.
So I worked my way through school, but then when I got out of the was about to graduate, I had a guy that I was working for running, he had 6 restaurants, and I was watching him, and I'm like, and he wanted me to do a buyout of his business and earn out and go forward and run his businesses. And I was looking at him and looking at his wife, and he drank a bottle of Stoli a day, and she drank a bottle of Stoli a day, and the kids hated them, and he hated their kids. And I'm like, pretty sure this is not what I want to do. So instead of doing that, I went the opposite and went to Marriott and worked at Marriott for 26 years, 15 of them for Bill, where I learned a lot because he is a remarkable leader, even to today. And so, but at Marriott, I kind of always got the other duties as assigned, and everything that was a mess kind of came my way. So I kind of got known as the guy that would help fix the messes and not leave bodies where they could be discovered. And so, and hence my relationship with Norm, where I'd lost my 5th urban hotel deal in a row, because basically we would go in with the all-white team, and that didn't seem to work very well, either from the standpoint of actually getting a chance to even make a bid, or the folks that were trying to do it. So I asked Norm, who was already working at Marriott with Ramada, if he would come over and run basically the urban development program. And our very first meeting, we were in downtown DC with Linda Kropp, who was the head of the town council at the time and a teacher, but was a very powerful woman at the time. And Bill Merritt and I went in, and Bill obviously knew her and hit it off with her, and she was thanking him for all they did for the city, and she was very interested in my story because I grew up where she was teaching and had gone to the same schools that some of which she worked on. So really thought I'd hit it off. And then Norm, who we'd explained enough about the DC Convention Center so he didn't point to the wrong lot that we were trying to do, we go in and we say, okay, it's we really want to see this done. So we walk outside, we're waiting for the car, and phone starts ringing, and does Linda Kropp call Bill Merritt? No. Does she call Steve Joyce? No. Does she call Norm? Yeah. I go, and that's why you're here. And then he took that deal and turned it into a lifestyle business, and has been incredibly successful. And if I'm going to point to anybody that if you're going to give me credit for it, I'll take it for Norm all day long. But Norm was able to bridge the gap between the folks that had the money and where they wanted, where folks that really should have the money and do deals. And at Marriott, we saw the opportunity in diversity. And I know that's a dirty word now, and everybody else is still doing the same thing, but now take it off your website and don't say anything about it. It's the norm. So, but I saw all these successful restaurateurs and potential investment real estate developers, people that knew the business, but maybe not the hotel business, but parts of it, and just saw a huge opportunity to get more hotels. And we did that by attacking an audience that wasn't necessarily interested. Because you got to remember, this goes back to the days where, if you were an up-and-coming young African-American business person, you didn't want to work in hotels because your sense of hotels was your parents cleaned rooms.
Exactly.
And you didn't, and they didn't think about, well, I could be general manager or I could be owner. And so we had to change the mindset. And in order to do that, we had to incent. And so Norm was a big part of building that program. And we said, look, we started going to McDonald's conventions, we went to restaurant conventions, we went to MBA meetings. We just kind of spread out and started talking about it, and we got several people interested, including Hank.
Hank Thomas, who still alive today. My wife and I spent, I program an hour to spend with him. I ended up spending about 6 hours with him and his wife having dinner. Such an inspiration. But remember, Norm Jenkins used to be the CFO of Ramada Inn when you guys bought it. Norm, a good friend, one of our board members, but think about this, Steve. It was your group, under your leadership, Norm, correct me if I'm wrong, that started the first diversity seminars. And Norm, I tell people, you want to see how Norm measures. Norm is a CPA, plus he works for Steve Joyce, so they had a strategy of going, and I think you worked at McDonald's prior to going. They had a strategy of going and finding people that didn't necessarily want to be in the business, but once you tell the compelling story and put the effort that these guys were going to be behind you, they got involved in the hotel business, and it's just incredible. But Steve, under your leadership, who were the people that influenced you? Obviously, Mr. Merritt is just a huge figure in this industry.
Yeah, so you can't work for a guy like Bill without it significantly impacting your approach, because he was a remarkable leader, and he was pretty funny because when you hear him, you'd say, well, that guy, nothing bothers him. He's very thick-skinned, and people can say whatever they want. That's not true at all. The other is he also cusses like a pirate, but nobody knows that either. So, but he was a guy that just had the eye for leadership and talent, and just could pick out. If you look through the list of former Marriott executives, it is the who's who of business, right? And so from Al Checky to, to Gary Wilson to, just a series of folks that have ended up running significant companies and doing significant business over the years. But he had the eye for it. I remember I was with him, and we were doing an interview, and the interviewer said to him, well, Mr. Marriott, now that you've lost Al Checky and Gary Wilson, how are you ever going to survive? And I could see him, you could see the blood rush to his head. But he always kept his cool. And he looked at me and he goes, yeah, well, somebody as dumb as me probably just needs to find some more smart people, huh? And so, but he was, the one thing about him, he was the most incredible eye for talent. The other thing is, he had the ability to make people run through fire for him because you truly felt he loved you. Because he would write you all these notes about, hey, great job on this, I love you, Bill. And it's like, who writes those notes? I go, but you actually, and I'm, in case you hadn't noticed, fairly cynical, so I'm not easy to kind of, but I bought it. And then the thing that he also learned about Bill is he loved you until he didn't. And when he didn't, it was swift and abrupt.
He had the axe.
But I would say Bill Marriott, but I worked for, I worked for several family companies, and my first two big jobs were Marriott and then Choice, and Choice is the Bainham family, and Stuart Bainham, in his own right, was a hell of a businessman. So I learned a lot from him as well. That was my first CEO job, so he needed something from me. He needed a turnaround, and I needed to get support for doing what I needed to do. And so when he called me and said, hey, I really want to talk to you, I said, I can't talk to you because if Bill Marriott finds out, I'm done. And he goes, come to my house. So I went to his house. Bill Marriott's a red meat Republican. There was an Obama autograph biography and like Obama paraphernalia from the first election. And I'm like, well, this is going to be different. But on the other hand, Stuart Bainham's father was exactly like Bill Marriott. So it was just this interesting political dynamic.
But Stuart Bainham's father worked for Marriott?
No. They were the ones that did Manor Care.
Oh yeah, that's right.
And then they did Choice Hotels. So a lot from that. And then, I picked up a lot from people that worked for me. So I would learn a lot by working with a guy like Norm about why are you being unsuccessful in urban development? And watching him change that program and change the nature of Marriott's relationships, particularly in the urban centers, to do those deals, you just got a lot out of it. And then, the other thing that people say, well, how'd you get to where you are? And I always say one thing, and the thing that I say is, listen very carefully because I'm only going to say this once. Mediocre performance following poor performance looks exceptional by comparison. If you want to know the history of my career, that's it.
He's kidding, guys.
No, I'm not.
Okay,
No,
he's not kidding.
I'm not at all. And if you know anything about what I've done, I just fix broken shit. That's what I do. That's what I did at Marriott. People go, what do you do? I go, well, if you wanted to really know, it varies quite a bit, but I fix broken shit for a living. And they go, that's what you do? I go, yeah, and it's not terribly dignified, but it actually pays pretty well.
So, you left Marriott, you went to Choice. Was Choice broken or?
Yeah, so they had when Stuart called me, he said, what do you think? I go, you only got one brand worth of shit and you're ruining it. And that was comfort. And so he said, that's why I'm calling you. I go, you're not ready for me. And he goes, I think I am. I go, let me put some numbers of terminations that I'm going to want to do almost right away and take points off the scoreboard. And he goes, no, I kind of figured that's what it was. And I said, and you're going to support me with the board if I do this? He goes, sure. So I went in, inherited a team that was less than aggressively pursuing excellence, changed the team, changed the program, changed the quality assurance, and then ended up adding, I don't know, probably 8 different brands and took it from 4,000 hotels to, I think, 7,700 by the time I left, including mid-scale and upscale brands. So it was a opportunity to go in with an existing platform that was kind of hanging on, but that needed to be completely revamped and completely restocked with talent, which took me 3 times to do right. Like we used to every year we'd have a big leadership meeting and we'd have a planning session in January and we'd take a picture. The picture would always say bright beginnings or something. And then the next year I'd look at the picture and 2 of the people would be gone. I go, we need to stop taking pictures. And so, but it took me literally three efforts to get the team right. But when I got the team right, they just lit it on fire, and they've been going strong ever since. They've a couple of little interesting episodes. I'm not very in touch with the company at all at this point. I still talk to Stuart every once in a while, and I still talk to the development guys, but I'm not involved at all with the company. But they have been through an interesting 2 years, particularly given if you knew the individuals involved, you'd be, ouch, that's got to not work well. So.
But they tried to buy another big company. It didn't quite work.
Yeah, and they made it very public, which if you knew the CEO, you would say, oh, that's really not his forte. So, you know, I don't mind scrapping with anybody. I don't care if it's public or not. Pat is he's an outstanding executive, and he is very competent at what he does, but he is not a conflict guy. And by nature of what I do and where I came from, that happens to be my only identifiable skill set, I think. So
you're a guy you want to run into in the back alley.
That's been said.
Actually,
No, but in fairness to me, everybody says, Steve's the nicest guy you've ever met.
I know.
Until he's not. So, no, but it's been, the thing about this group that I'm still, and part of the reason, I know Andy called 9 guys before he got to me because he had to go that far.
Yeah, my phone bugged?
Yeah, before he got to the Jays. But I wanted to come back because I wanted to say, I think this is still as important as it was 25 years ago, maybe even more so. Because things are not going to be easier, they're going to be harder, deliberately because of where we are. On the other hand, I think the hotel brands and companies need it more than ever. And so as a result, I think you're going to see all the same support and maybe more than you ever saw, and people talking about it less. Because
it's quite true.
Everybody doesn't want to be, the one that gets singled out because of all the bullshit going on.
No, I agree. I think you see it a little bit now where people don't want to talk about it, but the support is still there. Well, Steve, then from married, you went to Choice, and then you switched gears completely. You went to Dine.
Yeah, I didn't mean to do that.
IHOP. I like IHOP. I like IHOP.
IHOP was a great brand. Applebee's, you'll talk about. But the thing about, so when you become CEO, and you're a tenured CEO. So I'd been there 7 years, and they extended my contract another 2 years, and I had a protege waiting, who was getting other job offers. And the thing about, and this used to make other CEOs, you'd be on a panel and people would go like, I disagree with you totally. I don't think CEOs are worth a shit after about 6 or 7 years. Because unless you're remarkable, and let's face it, most of us aren't remarkable, okay? We're pretty disciplined and pretty good, but there's a shortage of remarkability in the CEO ranks. And so because you're not fresh to it. You don't have the energy for it. You don't want to take risks and break the furniture all over again, even though you should. And so my view was, when I did the 9-year extension, I was like, okay, then we're really done, because we're going to lose the guy that you wanted me to get ready to take over. And on top of that, somebody new needs to take this over. Somebody needs to do something different with it, put some new different energy into it. And so we ended up doing that, and I thought I was going to retire. And, I was getting to be at the age where, do I really want to work this hard again? Well, I was on the board of Dine Brands, and the CEO got in trouble. So the board came to me and asked me if they'd take over, and they were in really serious trouble. And I had a very similar talk to the talk that I had with Stuart, but this time I actually handed them a financial plan. I go, this is what I'm going to do. Yes or no? They go, oh, well, we'll talk about it when you come. I'm like, nope, I want it approved now. And they approved it, and as a result, Applebee's was the real problem. IHOP was always, and still is, a remarkable brand. They've got pricing issues and value issues, but Applebee's is tough because Applebee's is just like the rest of them, right? Every single one of them, you could go into a Fridays or a Ruby Tuesdays or a Chili's, close your eyes and open them, and you could be in the same restaurant, right? So when I came in, franchisees were in revolt. They had decided they wanted to go upscale, and it was an interesting story because they were showing these videos of these beautiful, young, diverse crowds eating small plate foods with delicious-looking cocktails. And I was on a board. I was the only person in the business that was actually in the franchise business and in the food and beverage business. And we had the head of Tiffany's on the board, and we had, because the former CEO didn't want anybody to know the business. And so they had decided they were going to go upscale when everybody else was going downscale. And they showed this video, and I sat at the end of the table and I said, does anybody bother by the fact that there's no one in our restaurants that look anything like that? And they're like, well, what do you mean? And I go, I actually eat in an Applebee's at least twice a month to get bitched at by my best friend who happens to be CFO of one of our largest franchisees, and he can tell me what a lousy job I'm doing. And I can tell you when I'm there, nobody there looks like these people. Add 60 pounds to make them look like they had one too many last night, that's our customer. I go, and you know what they want? Lots of food, cheap. Hence, again, a lot of the learnings that I came from people that I was associated with. There was a franchisee in Texas that was actually doing well. One of the few franchisees that were actually doing well. And he was doing a couple things. One of the things he was doing, in addition to doing special things that would drive people into the restaurant, was he was doing dollar drinks. So if you look at the Dollarita, that was in my second month there. And nobody wanted to do it, and all the franchisees were scared, and everybody was like, because it's like, how many people come in and drink 10 margaritas for, and this stuff was bad. I mean, you could drink this stuff without eating, which actually turned out to be a benefit, because it turned out the people that bought dollar margaritas ate more food than the regular customers, because you had to. So, but Jimmy Fallon drank one on the Tonight Show. We went viral in a way that turned, and we had lost 10% revenues 7 months in a row. We put the Dollarita in, the next month we were up 10, and we were up 10, we were up, we were positive for the next 2-3 years till they watered it down, literally. And so, but it's what made the difference. And so, but it wasn't something somebody at corporate thought, wasn't my idea, it was a franchisee that did it. And so we said, okay, I'm going to support it, I'm going to put $50 million in the marketing fund, we're going to revamp the profile with the customer, and we're going to become something somewhat different than the rest of them. And that happened to work, and the franchisee later on, I like this guy a lot because he tried to trademark it and then keep it from me. I'm like, yeah, you didn't read your contract very carefully. So, but a great guy, and it was what saved the company. IHOP was a little different. IHOP had gotten a little stale from the standpoint of not the food. People always love the food and the family atmosphere, and everybody brought their grandchild there, and then they brought their grandchildren. It's a great story. But it had gotten sort of, just people weren't thinking about it for other than breakfast. So we did a little thing where we came out with something called, does anybody remember IHOB? Okay. So we put one text out with we're thinking of changing the name to IHOB. We got 400 million impressions the next day.
Wow.
Celebrities were writing in. Maybe it's House of Beyonce. I'm like, I don't think so, but okay. My kids were with my ex in Norway, and they call me and they go, Dad, what are you doing? People are pissed. I go, I don't even have any restaurants in Norway. He goes, doesn't matter, they are angry. What are you gonna do? I go, I guess you'll just have to wait till you see on Monday. And the whole thing was, we introduced a new burger. But with that program, we created 5 billion impressions of IHOP that were different because it was a burger, and it was a good burger. Our burger before was not good. It was a series of burgers that were actually really good. And so that also came from a franchisee. And so what I've learned over the years is, and I like to talk a lot, everybody knows this, but if I can shut up long enough to listen, I'm probably gonna learn something worthwhile that then I can steal and make it my own, which is one of my other keys to success is, doesn't matter who did it, copy it, do it, and claim it, you were the first one too. So, but it's been I'm not done, clearly, but I've had this remarkable set of experiences over the years with a remarkable set of people, which is why you like this business. That's why I didn't like the real estate business, and
So you were next.
Not a good place to be. So my timing was bad, everything was bad. I mean, I helped fix the company, but then I got out. But coming back to the hotel business, this is just, it's like one of the best businesses in the world. And so I tell the story, when I left Choice and went to Dine, I got 10 phone calls and notes. When I went from Dine and went to Remax, I got maybe 3 notes or everything. I come back to Aimbridge. I was on a flight from Tuscany to London. I was going to a board meeting. My phone blew up. The voicemail box was full, which is 50 voicemails. And I had 250 texts and probably 1,000 emails. And these same people had no interest when I was doing anything. But coming back to Aimbridge was all of a sudden, Mahmood Kimji, though, had the best text. So you need to understand, Aimbridge is the combination of Aimbridge, which Dave Johnson built, and Interstate. Okay, Interstate was formed when I sued Patriot American, took Patriot American down, and spun the new Interstate out, which I was on the board of, which Mahmood Kimji quickly bought 10% of, and that was our first come royal battle, which he always outsmarted me, always. And so, but Mahmood's text said, hey Steve, how does it feel to work your entire life and end up exactly in the same place? And I'm like, well, one, that's funny as shit, but 2, there's a lot of truth to that. So I feel like I've kind of come home, and just like coming home, like my other experience in the hotel business, should have done a little more due diligence on Aimbridge before I did. I didn't.
You're going to turn it around,
It is completely turned around. So let me give you some numbers. I inherited a company that had $1.2 billion in debt, that couldn't service it, had no real growth, was churning over 15% of their properties a month, and had a management team that was absentee. And so when I went and talked to the guy, it was the Advent folks, and so Jeff Case, and Jeff said, so what we'd really like to see is kind of start from why don't you evaluate the team, go sit with them, evaluate them, and come back and tell us what you think. And I said to him, I go, so you don't know anybody in the hotel business then, do you? And he goes, well, what do you mean? I go, you must not know anybody in the business, because you couldn't have done this if you tried. He goes, what do you mean? He goes, you know them? I go, I know every single one of them. And he goes, well, how do you know them? I go, well, 2 of them I fired. That should tell you something. And he goes, so it's not going to be good? I go, no, it's not going to be good. He goes, well, we can't have more turnover and churn. The owners are already concerned. I'm like, or you could just ride this down the hill that is going down steeply. Those are your two choices. And so I hired probably one of my best hires ever. Next, I would say behind Norm, but a guy named Craig Richards, who was a longtime Marriott guy, ran international at the end.
Okay.
And the difference between Marriott international and Marriott domestic, when you're in international, you actually have to do everything yourself. In domestic, everything is taken care of for you. So people are less successful moving to independent and out from domestic versus the international. Because international, and Craig did it. He did owner relations, he did development, he did operations. So he'd done it all, but he had to do it. So it's a very different type of experience at Marriott than your typical domestic thing. So, so Craig came in and he started turning things around, and I had said, well, here's my list. Tell me if you agree or disagree. He came back, he said, no, your list is my list. I said, so what do you think? And he goes, well, I was thinking, you know, there's so much turnover, we got to do this slowly and gradually. I'm like, okay, sure, I'm going to support you no matter what you do. I will point out one thing, though, just so you might want to know this about me. In 45 years of being in this business, I've never fired anybody too early, ever. He goes, got it. He comes back 2 weeks later, he goes, you know, I was thinking about our little discussion, because I think I'd like to move a little faster. I'm like, great, I'm supportive. When are you thinking? He goes, I'm thinking next Tuesday. I'm like, turmoil comes through. But then what ended up happening was I didn't save the company. I didn't. I thought I was gonna, and if I had had another 6 months, maybe I could have, but it was too late. And as a result, the most remarkable thing happened that I've ever been associated with. We went and Aimbridge became a company that didn't have an owner because the owner didn't want to put any money in. So the bankers were going to take it, typical bankruptcy scenario, which would have been deadly for the company. So I work with a guy named, if you know Larry Kwan from Moelis, probably one of the most best guys in the industry at helping people create value. And so Larry started working with the banks, and we started talking with him, and Craig was working with him, and in the end, the banks did a complete swap of all their debt for just straight equity. No pref, no PIK, no nothing. And I'm talking to Larry, and I go, have you ever seen this? He goes, Steve, I've done 300 of these. I've never seen this happen once. And all the other bankers were saying, we've never seen, never happens. You're going to go into bankruptcy. I go, look, I can handle bankruptcy, but it'd be a lot better if we didn't. I go, because it's just going to cause more concern of the owners. And they were like, well, Steve, just get used to it because this is the way it works. We're 1 week away from having to file, and there's one holdout. And Larry calls me and says, there's one guy that's not going to agree. I'm like, I want his name and number. And he goes, let me make a phone call first. He calls back and he goes, he's in. So I said to Larry, I go, well, you got to take credit for this. He goes, because I go, if it's never happened, you're the one that made it happen. And he goes, yeah, I'll take some of the credit, but he goes, but they actually believed your bullshit. And I'm like, well, actually, I don't. He goes, I know. You tell a good story, and it's probably going to be true that they're going to make a lot of money. And as a result, so is the team. So in the end, by not saving it, we created a much more viable, much more significant company that is on a precipice of a new wave. And this is somewhat valid to you guys, because the brands are getting out of the management business. They don't want to be in it. And by the way, they probably shouldn't, except for the big boxes. You know, Bill Mayer and I used to get in this fight all the time about why are we running courtyards? We're lousy at it. And he goes, we're not lousy at it. I go, here's the franchisee's results, here's our results. He goes, you can't just do it that, it's not that simple. I'm like, well, I think it actually is that simple, but okay, you can keep arguing. So long story short though, every single brand out there, because it makes sense. They all looking at luxury brands and they're like, well, we want to be in the brand business and the consumer business, not in the hotel operating business. That's low margin stuff. So what's going to happen is either your own ability to manage hotels, if you want to build a management business in addition to your own properties, and your ability to potentially be part of hotel management companies that are going to grow significantly, this is the dawn of a new age. This is the same thing as when in the early 90s when asset management became the rage and owners started taking more control from the brand companies. It's that kind of an impact that's going to change everything. It means you can't go to a brand company and have a career anymore as a manager. You can come to Aimbridge. I can give you a career, but in the old days, you go to Marriott or you go to Hyatt or you go to Hilton. Not anymore. They're getting rid of it. They're going to get out of the business for the most part, and they're going to create a lot of opportunities in the meantime, both from the standpoint of potential purchases. There's several places where brand companies own real estate. Now they're looking to sell. So there's that opportunity. So if you haven't talked to your brand folks about what's out there, you should. Then the second is the ability for you to self-op or to bring in an operator that becomes a partner with you. Bring some capital, bring some value some way to make it easier for you to get your deal done. And at the same time, the management company has an actual stake in it, so they're not just managing straight up for fees, that they actually care that they're going to perform. And then getting with the right companies. Obviously I'm a big believer in Aimbridge at this point, but it's been a remarkable change, and we're just getting started because the states were already kind of moving that way, but it is going global in a hurry. If you go to an international conference, one of the first sessions is what is third-party management and how do you pick a third-party manager? So, and this includes the Chinese, this includes Asia globally, it includes the Middle East. And so as a result, you're going to start seeing, Aimbridge already has a pretty good international platform. You're going to see that expand pretty significantly pretty soon.
You have 3 hotels in the Bahamas, so it's great. But I got one question. You've always been revolutionary in changing the paradigm. And I don't know if I'm allowed to talk about this, but many years ago, I think Norm was there, we were trying to get a hotel deal done, couldn't get finance. And am I allowed to talk about that?
Sure.
Okay. So we have this big reception. Hunter, one of our guys was in the bedroom making phone calls trying to get a deal done and couldn't get it done. Couldn't get any money, couldn't get it financed. And this guy stepped in and financed the deal. I mean, it was just amazing. Otherwise, quite frankly, had you not done that, that guy would probably not be where he is today. You think about it, Norm. Steve, in addition to your career, you were really not, you were mediocre, but look at where you are today, just like the other guy. But the commitment is not just about lip service, but you had the slide up there. In it's there? Oh, no, it's down here. There it is. Steve had hair, Norm had hair, little Clint's face is messed up.
See, this is
right?
where we got the twin sons of a different mother.
That's it. Look at my hair. I had hair then.
Yeah, I had it all the way back.
So this was in 2001. I met Steve back in 2000 at Marriott headquarters. Norm had this great idea, the nerve of you to get black people to own hotels, and Steve and Norm had this program. We went up there. You can take that down. I hate it. That's it. I have no hair. But this is the sort of guys.
I will say, I just want to repeat, it's a good thing your son didn't inherit your looks.
Wait a minute. I get better looking as I get older.
Yeah, you look a lot like me.
We look good older. But listen, I'm going to take a couple of questions. Anybody walking around with a mic? Where's the microphone? There's a hand up right here. Who has the mic? There you are.
Sorry. Thank you very much. Good afternoon.
Afternoon.
Thank you. My name is Christian Ellis. Like I said, I'm here with Virginia State University. I work in nutrition and dietetics, and I'm currently working as a researcher in the chemistry department. But I'm interested in terms of hospitality, we were talking, I'm interested in medicine after this, but also home care and things like that, and then the family consumer sciences at large in terms of research. But my question when it comes to you, and then maybe that will be helpful, what I just said about myself, I know that you worked for others in a large capacity in your research, in your work. Do you have any advice when it comes to working for an established institution, such as something more public-facing, like a more public sector-facing, or something like a franchise, while also working your own business, you know what I mean? Like setting that up meantime and juggling those things in terms of the capacity and the amount of time that you spend.
Yeah, so that's a great question for me because I worked at a very large company.
Right.
And I went in entry level. Now, when I left, arguably I was the number 2 or the number 3 guy there, but I was still working for a living.
Right.
And I used to not necessarily fit in that well.
Really, Steve?
Yeah, really. Bill Murray goes, "Do you even have a white shirt?" And I go, "Yeah, I'm saving it for your funeral." So he goes, so it was not good. So, but basically, Bill Marriott, I have to credit, found me early on and started, the way it always starts with Bill is he starts asking some questions that he doesn't think he's getting the answer. So in my case, it was, why are the franchise hotels making more money than the managed hotels? So I told him. Then all hell broke loose, and I was warned by 15 people I was ruining my career, and I'm going to get fired, and everybody's going to do this and do that. And my response was, he's the chairman of the company. He asked me a question. You don't want me telling the answer? Tell him you're not going to let me tell him the answer? Because I'm going to tell him. And that's how it started. And then soon enough, he became very supportive of my career. A couple times when I was going to leave, he personally stepped in and gave me the reason I was going to leave to do, and ended up running global development for him, essentially. I had this big fancy title, but I took care of owners and franchisees and ran global development. So, and when I say this without trying to offend any of the audience. What's really important when you work in a big company is get fuck you money really early. Okay, sorry if that offended anybody. Because then somebody tells you to do something you don't want to do, guess what you say? Right? And I built such a reputation at Marriott for that people would go, and this is true, I'm kind of proud of it. People are like, well, how did you last at Marriott? He goes, you must have tried. I go, no, I just did what I thought was the right thing to do. And they go, well, you know what? Seems like 1,000 people can say no, you're the only one who seems to be able to say yes. I go, yeah, because I'm willing to take the risk. And so Bill Marriott would step in every time. HR would come in and say, he's running his own incentive program and bonuses. And he didn't even ask us. Bill Marriott goes, you run his numbers, you can run his business. Till then, leave him alone. And he constantly protected me until the end. And as a result, Marriott's development doubled globally. Now it's gone much further past me. But I was able to be in a position to tell people I'm doing it my way, and if you don't get out of my way, you're going to get run over.
Perfect.
So
With that in mind, we're completely out of time. Steve is going to be around for a little bit. Thank you all. Let me give you one thing. I told you about early when we started NABHOOD with an idea, he was a supporter. Today, Steve supports our Hospitality Scholarship Fund, and happy to do it. Steve, thank you very much for this opportunity. Help me, give him another round. You want to take a picture? Like old times. Only person we're missing is Ken. We need a check, yeah. We got it.
No, the check's in.
Go on the other side. I turn sideways, they get a little bit.
That was the 7th annual Thomas J. Baltimore Jr. Distinguished Speaker Series featuring Steve Joyce and Dr. Andy Ingram. Steve Joyce is the Executive Chairman of Aimbridge Hospitality. We invite you to visit our corporate suites by Choice Hotels in Orchid A, Marriott International, Orchid B, Hilton in Orchid C, U.S. Virgin Islands in Orchid D, the Bahamas in Gardenia B, and the rest of our sponsors. After this, we have breakout sessions scheduled at 12:40, the Capital Stack, financing and raising capital, debt, equity, tax credits, and other incentives. The moderator for that panel is Norm Jenkins. That will be hosted next door in Tuttle. We also have a breakout session on feasibility and marketing studies, why you need them. The moderator for that session is Rachel Rothman. That session features Paul Breslin, Agnes Pierre-Louis, Damon Smith, and Kristen Buckhout. That is hosted in Monroe. So we have our breakout sessions from 12:40 to 1:25, the Capital Stack in Tuttle next door, and feasibility and marketing studies in Monroe. That will be followed by the NABHOOD Scholarship and Awards Lunch, brought to you by Hilton at 1:30. Jazzy instrumentals.